and welcome to the AWS Made Easy Ask Us Anything live stream. Your co-host Stephen Barr and Rahul Subramaniam.
Hey everyone.
This is episode number 26. How have you been?
Oh, this has been such a crazy week. Just before reInvent, I fly out in 3 days? So Friday night is when I fly out of here to be there. So couldn't be more excited about it. But just the prep towards reInvent has been at a blistering pace at this end. So crazy long nights, lots of meetings, recordings, planning for everything that's going to happen over there. So yeah, been a pretty hectic week. I can't wait to sleep 22 hours on a flight over to the US.
How about you? I've been following this term pre-invent on social media. Yes. And that has been fun. It's been fun getting everything ready and looking forward to the live stream. I had a little bit of a funny story. So getting ready for our live stream, we have microphones and equipment. I use this little Rode microphone. And so let's see, I'll show you the equipment. I've got this Rode Wireless Go mic here. I've got the transmitter, and then this is the receiver, and they're really good. But I burned about 25 minutes because these two cables, although apparently similar, this one is an Apple genuine one. This one is one I bought in an airport. This one doesn't work. It works for headphones, but not for microphones. So after half an hour of adjusting this, updating firmware, all this stuff. Oh, no. It's this cable. This one works. That one doesn't. I guess the more
you should put one of those labels to it and say, this works.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those, it's always good to have good tools at your disposal.
I couldn't agree more. And I think you're the one who convinced me to buy a set of those Rodes. So
and they've saved me a couple of times. So one of the neat things with those Rodes is that you can, they'll record locally in addition to transmitting wherever they're transmitting to.
Yeah.
So if your connection breaks or you walk away from it or whatever, you still have a local recording.
Got it. Awesome. Hey, by the way, you got some really cool stuff. I see your background has changed and you put in a whole lot of 3D printed stuff out there.
Yes. So we, this is a little bit of a sneak preview. I've got the studio still set up. We did a video about dev spaces, and then I'd shot that initially a while ago, but now I've done a V2 of it. And it's currently on the so-called cutting room floor. It will be coming out soon with talking about our IDE dev spaces. And I've got all 3D printed components. It's just a show. We talk about containers. Do you need to use them or not? We talk about development environments. We've got Git over there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's been a year since you printed that C7G, and it's still the most relevant processor out here. So I can't wait to see what they announce this year at reInvent. I think it was exactly a year ago that we printed that one, correct?
Yeah. Time flies. Well, let's get into our announcement segment, and then we will, let's get into our announcements, and then we've got a rapid fire news to cover this week. There was a flood of AWS announcements, so we're going to try a faster pace. I couldn't find my egg timer, so I'm just going to be watching the clock. We're going to try and keep it to 5 minutes an article.
Awesome. Let's go for it.
Here goes. All right, so the biggest announcement is, wrong window. It is that one.
Of course.
Here we are, reInvent. This is what everyone's been getting ready for. Biggest conference of the year by far. It is coming up next week. And then we have, of course, Rahul, your talk. This is PRT 086.
Correct. So please, if you're at reInvent, please come and attend. I'm going to be talking about all of our experiences over the last 15 years, trying to manage costs and save money while running 45,000 AWS accounts at AWS. So yeah, it should be fun. I'll try to keep it short, brief, and more from a practitioner's standpoint of what you should care about. So come in, and if there's specifically some things that you like, me to answer. There's going to be a Q&A at the end of it. I'd be delighted to address any questions. So looking forward to it. Looking forward to meeting you all over there. So yeah, please come to the show.
And one thing that is interesting, so it's in the Venetian. I didn't realize that you only get the locations if you sign in. For some reason, they hide that field.
Okay.
So it is. So if you're looking for that, sign into your account. Then you can see booth 435 at the Venetian, which is this hotel right here. So somewhere in that giant complex, we'll be talking about CloudFix.
Great.
Let's see, other fun announcements. We are on Spotify now. I got some feedback this week. Hey, you need to be on Spotify. So now if you want to listen to us while you're working out, while you're running, while you're driving, but don't watch if you're driving, just listen. We are on Spotify. I'll put the link in the comments here. The catalog is getting backfilled with all our episodes. So we're currently on 1 through 10. And then by the time you catch up, all of the episodes will be there by the end of the week.
That is fantastic. I can't wait to go back to some of those episodes. I'm pretty sure that if I watch the first few, I'd definitely cringe a lot more. But but I think we're getting slightly better with every episode that we do.
Oh, I think so. We've got great production value here. That's the other fun announcement. We are now on Mastodon as well. We just want to be everywhere. There's a really neat Mastodon server called AWS Community.social. So shout out to them. Let me put this link in the comments as well. So yeah, AWS Community.social. This is the Mastodon link, and then I've got my personal link right here. So whatever.
And I'll be on there very soon as well. Hopefully by the next episode, we'll put out my link in there as well.
There's really good content on here. Here, I found this one I thought was really funny. 7 things all kids need to hear. I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry. I forgive you. I'm listening. RAID is not backup. Make offsite backups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty clever and very true.
Very funny. Very funny and very true. Absolutely.
All right. One other announcement. I got to talk to John Meyer recently. That was really fun. We did an interview. This came out, his episode number 103. So I'll put the links to that. That was a really fun interview, and that's now out for your consumption.
And this one is very cool. So please watch it. Should be a lot of learning in there.
All right. Well, let's jump into, I think before we do the standard, we've got a lot of articles to review. They posted a lot. Which one should we do first?
Let's see. Why don't you pick the first one?
All right. Why don't we talk about, let's see. Why don't we go to the breaking news article, which I thought was kind of interesting, and then we'll go from there.
I think.
Sorry, Rahul, I cut you off there.
No, I was going to say that I think I know which one this one is going to be. But yeah, you're spot on. This is the big news around AWS.
Now, this one I think is, I don't know. How do you read this? It said $10 billion, and one person said that's enough for 10,000 very well paid engineers. I really like my Alexa. I've got a lot of them, and now a bunch of devices just perked up.
I was just shutting mine off. Yeah, I have something like 7 or 8 in the house, and I actually think that this is just a big accounting failure of sorts in terms of people analyzing. I think Amazon does a pretty neat job of how they think of costs internally, and I seriously doubt that it's $10 billion of losses this way. The way you should think about the Alexa devices, that these devices are probably loss-making purely from a device standpoint, but they are literally what drive up usage of everything from Amazon Music to purchases, that happen on the Amazon store itself. I think it's the same story with the Kindle as well. There's an entire division in the in the Amazon supply chain optimization team, or SCOT as it's called, which is labeled the crap team, and it stands for can't realize a profit. And their entire job is to make sure that they really understand the goods that they need to stock and sell, because they drive a huge amount of business outside of that one product. That product itself may not make a profit, but it actually is a significant driver of profit elsewhere. The biggest example of that is diapers. The reason why Amazon bought diapers.com and generally have tried to get as much of the diaper stuff going is because diapers is one of those areas where you do not make money on diapers. Okay, diapers is probably a loss-making product, but by stocking diapers with all the other goods that parents want all in one place, they make sure that when a parent comes to Amazon.com to shop for anything that they need for their kid, it is all available in one place. If they had to go to one other place for one item, they would pretty much lose the entire customer and all the other goods that they had bought. So I think whoever's done this analysis has done this is not how Amazon thinks about their businesses, and this is probably not how they account for it. 10 billion seems way off.
Someone saw a public filing and made a story out of it. It
looks like it.
To say, just as a simple example, I used to work with the University of Washington MBA program a lot, and we talk about accounting. And so this MBA program, they had free ice cream. And I can say, well, you can either think of this as a really, really good value education that has free ice cream, or a really expensive bit of ice cream that has a free education, right? And that's
exactly.
what we mean by. So if you thought about it that way, like, yeah, wow, this is a loss-leading product, this ice cream we're selling. But it's that's what we mean by saying it's an accounting issue.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, if you are in the market for an Alexa, if they take a hit, get this one. This was a really good device, and for $199, I think this is a great value.
The Echo Studio.
Yeah, this has. Well, I mean, there's no screen or anything, but the sound quality is phenomenal. So I highly recommend this one.
Nice. I got to try this one out.
All right. Well, oops, that is back here. What do we give? I guess we can rate this in this. Really can't rate this in the standard way.
No.
Yeah.
One, this is not related to the cloud, but it doesn't complexify or simplify. I think this is just, if there was a tag, I'd say clickbait.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna have to.
I think that yeah, we gotta have.
I'm gonna give it a complexity for the moment, just because. Yeah, clickbait. Yeah, it's clickbait. It's a little bit deceptive. It's not. I think it got some attention, but certainly they've gotten a lot of value out of the greater Alexa ecosystem. But how do you account for that in terms of? I don't know.
Correct.
My little kids yell at Alexa, and it's baked into some of their learning. And how does Amazon account for that?
And can you imagine the amount of data they've collected around all the natural language processing stuff? Speech across so many different countries, across so many different dialects, across so many different accents. I mean, they have the biggest treasure trove of data to create amazing ML models. Like, this is not something that any amount of money could have bought. They're just the way Alexa devices have been, proliferating across the globe. I think it's a win for Amazon overall, if I really think about it.
Well, yeah, I agree. And the developing Lex, all that stuff. So
totally.
All right. Well, let's keep an eye on this one and see how the story develops. All right. Let's talk about Nitro. Okay, here goes. All right, AWS Nitro system now supports previous generation instances. So this is interesting because normally we talk about things going forward, but this one is almost retrospective. So why would they do this? Why would they go through all this trouble to have Nitro enabled on M3, M2, and M1?
I think standardizing all of their virtualization layer makes total sense. When you have a huge number of different pieces of infrastructure that kind of drive the underlying infrastructure layer, it just doesn't. It gets very complicated even for AWS to manage all this stuff. I mean, imagine having different network bandwidths available on the different architectures. I remember there was a time when some of the architecture could only handle, maybe 16 devices. Some NICs could only handle, or the real underlying network architecture could not handle more than a certain amount of bandwidth. And anything more than that, you had to actually choose a different bandwidth. You had these old para-virtual and the hypervisor layers that manage different kinds of instances, of old. You now no longer have to manage all of that. And if all of your, I don't even know what to call this. This is as close to the hardware layer as things get. But at that layer, if you got all of that relatively homogeneous, then you can do better, offloading, scalability, elasticity, all of that. You can basically manage a lot better across all the VMs that you launch. So it makes sense for them, for sure. And it brings a lot of the standard monitoring and reliability to any instance that you launch, irrespective of whether it's old or new.
And this is a great contrast to, say, maybe other cloud providers who deprecate things without warning. This is an example of backporting things to make it even more flexible.
Correct. And I think it goes back to something that Werner Vogel said in the last reInvent keynote. He said, APIs are forever. Okay, which means that if you made an API call to launch a particular instance type, you have to assume that that API call will need to be supported forever. So whatever they can do to spruce up the underlying infrastructure to keep that running for a much longer period of time, they're basically going to do that.
That's real wisdom, and hopefully we can get to his Werner Vogel's distributed computing manifesto later in the show. We can talk a little more about his mindset and how he architected AWS for success. What do we give this article?
This one I think is neutral. I don't think it simplifies or complexifies anything. It definitely simplifies things for AWS themselves. So yeah, let's wear the AWS hat. I think we need a different background for this.
That's right. I meant to fix that.
We forgot the background.
Let's see. How do we do this?
Right.
Neutral.
And I would give this. I don't think this impacts consumers very much, really. So I'd give it a 4-star. That's fine.
Yeah. It's if you happen to be using those instances, then great. If not, I would guess this is a limited set of people, but good to get everyone on the same.
You'd actually be surprised. So when I look at the customer base for some of our products, which basically offer servers or compute as a service, I find that there's about 40% of the customers who are still on M1s, M2s, and M3s.
Wow. Okay.
When M6s have been out for a while, so
well, it's good to get everyone on a standard control plane there.
Absolutely.
All right.
Control plane. That was the word I was looking for. That was just escaping me.
There's a lot of terminology out there. All right. Well, let's go to the next one. Rahul, you pick.
Why don't we pick? Give me 1 second to bring up my list. Give me a second here.
No problem.
There's a big list here.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we do the one about Event Bridge?
Okay. Here
introducing new capabilities that make it simpler.
Okay. Here. All right, This was just announced yesterday. Amazon Event Bridge introduces new capabilities that make it simpler to build rules. So now it supports generating CloudFormation templates from the rules and buses console page.
Correct. And this is, this definitely goes and makes this way easier. Earlier, you had to go into the console, and that was the only way you could manage all the rules. And now the fact that it can all be offered as code, and backed up over there. I mean, that's any configuration as code or infrastructure as code is a good thing. because you can version it, you can roll back, you can do all of those things, which you couldn't earlier. I mean, you would have to go into the console and manually edit stuff in the past. So definitely makes it way easier to do this. And Event Bridge rules can get very complicated because depending on how many, targets and stuff you have, I mean, this really goes ahead and simplifies it a lot.
Yeah.
It's about both JSON and YAML. So,
and I like that you can get a CloudFormation template. CloudFormation is a big step if you're not used to it. If you're just used to poking around in the console, CloudFormation is a big next step. So being able to see a CloudFormation template based on something based on an intent, that's great.
Yep. That is awesome. So this one, I'd actually give it a simplifies.
Okay, let's close my window. There we go. Simplifies.
I think we are unlocking a new capability this week, which is randomly picking the topic to talk about and having the banners pop up and stuff like that. So the audience ignored a few glitches. We're just getting better at this.
Well, I need some help with because I've got StreamYard. So like StreamYard, I can easily, or my Stream Deck, I can easily switch the views in StreamYard like that. I can push a button and do that right away. But I need to be able to program my Stream Deck here. This is a Stream Deck. So see, I have all the views. I need to be able to program this to pick the cloud ratings. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. So I need to have it launch some. What's that Selenium script that can actually pick the right button?
Write a Chrome plugin.
Yeah, that's what I need. It needs to be a Chrome plugin that can pick the right button. So when I push this, that way I just have a hardware interface to it.
Yep.
All right. So this is simplifies, and then look, the article it's pretty clear.
That's pretty clear. So yeah, I'd give this a 4-star. 4 cloud. Sorry.
There we go. 4 clouds. All right. Well, I think I'll get to pick the next one. Why don't we talk about Secrets Manager?
Oh, this one I like.
All right, here goes. Oop, I thought they would have turned off the cloud. All right, there we go. So here is AWS Secrets Manager now supports rotation of secrets as often as every 4 hours.
Yeah.
What situation would you need to do that?
So if you have an incident of any kind and you want to basically rotate all the keys, you may have a situation where you are doing some kind of temporary rotation of secrets, and then you fix a bunch of stuff, you make sure that you basically plug the hole, and then you want to go through a full cleanup after a full audit, and that might be just a few hours later. So if you want to reset all of that, because during an incident management scenario, you might actually give certain people certain privileged access, which you will want to revoke, or you want to give certain services certain privileged access that you want to revoke and reset everything. So in those times, I definitely see this helping a ton.
Well, actually, I can think of one right now is for live streaming. When you're live streaming and you want to show some tutorial, and sometimes despite your best efforts, a key comes up on the window, and you want to be able to say, all right, this key is going to be valid for the next hour, and then it's not useful anymore. Actually, I was watching one of Darko's live streams a few weeks ago, and they were building a Slack bot. And then someone, of course, grabbed the URL off the stream and started spamming the Slack bot. So being able to have some control over that and limit the blast radius, that's a good idea. So I could see being able to rotate these keys if you're doing live streams, tutorials. They would say, okay, here's these keys. You don't have to be too careful about them because they're going to be useless in an hour anyway. So that's pretty neat to see that. let's see. There's a larger blog post here. Gets into more detail. Okay, and this gives use cases, screenshots,
and step by step, guide. So this is great. I would actually give this a 4.5, and definitely another simplifies.
Here's our 4.5, and then here is our simplifies. Awesome, nice work, Secrets Manager team.
The only thing that I'm a little curious about is what prevents them from letting anyone do this on demand anyway. Like I was thinking about what the constraints could be.
Well,
and
is it something with a caching layer, or just some? Do you think it's a technical thing? Because obviously you can update a piece of data more often than this.
Correct. I mean, their internal caches operate way faster than this, and so I don't see why they couldn't allow you to do this often.
Yeah, that is. Well, they do mention at no additional cost. So I suppose if you wanted to do it more often than this, you could pay for it. Is that?
No, sure. I think this. Yeah, possibly you could pay for it. That's possible. We'll look at pricing. I haven't looked at Secrets Manager pricing in a very long time.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things you just take as it's like SQS pricing. Like, okay, if you're worried about it, you have a strange use case.
That's true.
All right. Well, let's take a 30-second break, and then we come back. Let's do Ro. I think it's your turn to pick.
Yep. Why don't we pick the recognition labels?
Awesome. Oh, okay, cool. That I'm actually excited to demo that. All right. Let's do a 30-second break, and then we'll come back. We'll be doing recognition labels. Here we go.
Public cloud costs going up and your AWS bill growing without the right cost controls? CloudFix saves you 10 to 20% on your AWS bill by focusing on AWS recommended fixes that are 100% safe with zero downtime and zero degradation in performance. The best part? With your approval, CloudFix finds and implements AWS fixes to help you run more efficiently. Visit cloudfix.com for a free savings assessment.
All right, recognition labels. Adds 600 new labels, including landmarks, and now detects dominant colors.
Yep. And this is actually really, really neat. For those of you who are used to going on, any photo website or, looking at just stock photos and stuff like that, this becomes so relevant because you want to basically get an image that matches your brand, and you want to basically make sure. So you could now literally say, I want a picture that is yellow in shade, but shows people around the Eiffel Tower, right? If you wanted to search for something like that, you could actually go ahead and do that today with all of these new labels that got added. So I think this makes classification and search of images way better right out of the box without you having to really do very much at all.
Recognition is really, really neat. We actually demoed recognition last week using a service called DevFlows. Is my camera?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, your camera just went completely blurred. I don't know what happened.
Let me show you why. Okay, so I've got this little app called it's a Streamlit app, and let me take a photo of myself. And this app is going to use a DevFlow, and it's going to run it through recognition. So first, what it's doing, it's uploading this to an S3 bucket called recognition/general generated a UUID, and then a DevFlow, which is a product that we have, which shows how to organize AWS. It shows how to organize and connect AWS services together in a really neat drag and drop way. this is going to pick this up and it's going to run it through recognition. So the only problem is this is cold at the moment. Let me close the, oh yeah, I'm getting my notifications now that it's tagged it. And I'm going to there we go. Shelf, beard, head, face, person, portrait, photography, indoors, table, furniture, cupboard, barbershop. Oh, I need a haircut.
You need a haircut.
All right, so let me close this because it snagged my camera. And I think I should be back.
It still shows you.
I see what happened. Give me 30 seconds. Somehow.
Did you just change your camera? Stop your cam and turn it back on.
There we go.
In Riverside. There we go.
All right. So recognition is super cool. So, and actually,
there are lots of very interesting use cases for recognition. I think we did one where a lot of businesses were also starting to use recognition to detect defects in parts and things like that. So there's or detect anomalies. I think there's a lookout for vision, which feeds off recognition as well, and does a lot of interesting stuff. So I think there was NLP that was kind of the frontier for machine learning and AI at one point of time. Now it's a lot of the vision. I mean, looking at stuff that recognition is looking at stuff that OpenAI is doing with DALL-E and a bunch of other GPT-3 stuff. I think this is really exciting times. Now we have to figure out what interesting ways to leverage all of this, or leverage these skills.
Well, actually, one we're doing a hackathon later of a Dev Spaces by DevFlows hackathon, having some friends over. We're still beta testing the hackathon format as we want to bring it public probably either in December or early next year. But one device I have that a friend of mine sells, I'll put this on the screen. He's in this business where he sells these headsets where you can take a picture hands-free. Nice. and people use these in manufacturing settings and heavy retail setting or heavy industry settings, and they're good for mining. And I want to hook this up to a dev flow to be able to do exactly what you're saying. You can look at something, take a picture, and then this picture can run through recognition and say, is something wrong? Is something broken? Look at defects, identify part numbers. So there's a lot
That'd be awesome.
things we can do. I've got my I'm in the process of reorganizing again, so I can't actually reach the device, but it's back there. All right.
Okay. So it definitely simplifies. You do less work. You don't have to do any custom training. So definitely it simplifies. And then it gives this one for cloud as well.
Cool. Recognition, 600 labels. So
that's a lot.
We're going to publish our recognition demo app. We just need to make a few more changes to the app, which we're doing in the hackathon today, and I'll publish that on our social feeds, so you can just take a picture and it'll run it through recognition and give you the raw output, so you can experiment with it.
Yep.
All right. Well, what's next? Should we do?
Your turn to pick.
Let's do SageMaker Jumpstart.
Okay. So this one is actually pretty interesting. So identifying key insights from text documents through fine-tuning and HPO with Amazon SageMaker Jumpstart. Okay. You want to take a first pass at this?
Yes. Okay. So looking at this, we say these documents contain critical information. With the advancement of NLP, we can uncover valuable insights and connections from these textual documents.
Yeah. So
we see.
If you look at original documents like, they originally started something like Textract, which allowed you to take forms in all of these domains, whether it was finance or banking or accounting. It would basically look at your look at these documents and be able to say, hey, this actually looks like a form, and here are the values for the form. That is kind of, I think, the first iteration of it. Now Jumpstart takes it to a whole other level. It's able to identify entities. It's able to identify relationships between entities.
And I guess intent. Like, what is the purpose of this document?
Exactly.
That's which it still kind of blows my mind that this, and what this reminds me of, and I wonder if they're related internally, is the call center analytics, Connect call center analytics, where you can actually detect an action item. When you say, when you're an agent and you say, okay, I'm going to give you a refund, and then Connect will detect that action item in that piece of the dialogue and say, okay, this is the action that's a result of this call, is customer gets a refund. And so really being able to get these very high order concepts out of unstructured text, this is really, really neat.
I agree. And then the fact that you can then funnel all of these insights into all the vertical AI solutions that they have, which is forecasting or personalization, predictive maintenance, your anomaly detection, things like that. It's really, really cool.
Wow, credit rating prediction. Oh, it's amazing how there's whole industries here that are going to become commoditized.
Correct. I look at credit rating, look at predictive maintenance. That is huge in industry. The fact that you can literally do that for manufacturing, like take all your machines, take all of the data around the machines, push it all up, and you got, all the sensor readings going up, and you can predict when the machine is going to go down or require maintenance. The ability to plan that at a factory is just so game-changing.
A friend of mine, he worked at a Navy think tank for a while. He was a friend from when we were doing operations research school. And that was his main problem, was trying to figure out, okay, they have these supply depots and they have these really expensive parts, and they don't want to wrap up all this capital in this part that's just going to sit here in the supply depot for years and years and years on end. But at the same time, they want to make sure that they have enough spare parts so that when they're needed, they're going to be there, and how to balance that trade-off and how to distribute that. So predictive maintenance is a huge input to these giant optimization problems, which take into account probability of part failure, cost, and then necessity, running through these huge convex optimization solvers like Gurobi, and you come up with, okay, have this many parts at this depot.
I think the extreme case of that is a company like Applied Materials, which basically supplies parts for the big chip manufacturers. So if you were to just stock spares for one plant, it would probably run into billions of dollars in terms of costs. And so instead of keeping inventory, like literally a spare part for everything that could go wrong, that just didn't make sense. They actually spent an insane amount of time figuring out, with optimization techniques, trying to predict when a machine might go down and appropriately place inventory close to that location. Because for every day that a fab unit goes down, I mean, it really impacts global chip manufacturing, because there are only a few major chip manufacturers in the world. So with every fab unit that goes down because of some hardware failure or some machinery failure, it just, it can affect things very, very significantly. So being able to predict this with one click, that just seems incredible.
No, I have to admit, these predictive maintenance, it reminds me of in 2001 A Space Odyssey, when the HAL 9000 computer says that the antenna unit is going to fail and tricks the astronaut was Dave Bowman, to go out on a spacewalk. And that's where HAL locks him out of the spaceship. And it's this big, I'm sorry for the spoiler, but it's been 50 years. So
I think I can grant that.
But it's a turning point in that movie. And you got to think, okay, there's predictive maintenance, right? This is, the astronauts bought into this because it's going to be a key part of running a spaceship. Is going to be, when is something going to fail? And do we replace it early or do you wait?
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, it's a lot of fun.
Okay, so this is definitely simplifies and I'd give it a 4.5 clouds.
Oh, I really need to be faster on this. Okay. This is 4.5 clouds.
There we go.
And simplifies. Cool. This is great. All right. Well, let's take another 30-second break. And then when we come back, let's get into the QuickSight Dashboards new feature.
Yeah, that one is pretty neat. Let's go to that next.
All right. Here goes. We'll be back.
Is your AWS public cloud bill growing? While most solutions focus on visibility, CloudFix saves you 10 to 20% on your AWS bill by finding and implementing AWS recommended fixes that are 100% safe. There's zero downtime and zero degradation in performance. We've helped organizations save millions of dollars across tens of thousands of AWS instances. Interested in seeing how much money you can save? Visit cloudfix.com to schedule a free assessment and see your yearly savings.
All right, here it is. QuickSight Dashboards, now available for seller reporting and insights on the AWS Marketplace.
Yeah.
Sellers now access the Build Revenue Dashboard and Collections and Disbursements Dashboard in the Insights tab of AWS Marketplace Management Portal.
Right. So if you are one of the ISVs that's building software and selling it in the AWS Marketplace, which, by the way, is a huge enabler. I mean, it basically gives you distribution like never before. So leverage AWS Marketplace if you aren't already using it. Now, historically, what's basically been happening is that when you do that, you basically get your reports in that you can export out as CSVs, and then you bring it into a Tableau or something like that. Now that the QuickSight dashboards are available for you right out of the box, you can do all of the slicing and dicing of the data right there. You can look at things by day, you can look at it by event, you can look at like things in all kinds of different ways, and leverage Q and leverage, all the forecasting and stuff like that, which come built in with QuickSight. You can leverage all of that out of the box without having to build all of these solutions yourself or constantly export stuff from here to there. Invariably, someone makes a mistake and you're dealing with wrong data. So avoid yourself all that headache and the trouble. Just start leveraging the QuickSight dashboards to do this for you.
Well, it's an incredible jump from the perspective of the vendor, right? Okay, you go from here's a CSV file you can download to here's 1.5 years of historical data, daily refreshes, business metrics. This is a really big jump. This is an enormous burden that they don't have to worry about.
And you are not sitting and doing joins across different data sets, like taking your SKUs and then multiply, joining that with data around, parts that got sold on a particular month and stuff like that. It's all there for you to slice and dice any way you want.
And I guess the neat thing is it really helps both parties, right? Because it's just going to help people learn how to optimize their listings on Marketplace, how to understand their seller dynamics.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, this whole, sometimes we sell some things on Facebook Marketplace and they'll give feedback saying, you need to add more words to your listing or you need better pictures. And I imagine seeing the same type of feedback eventually. You need a better description because people are leaving your listing.
I mean, imagine what Amazon's technology does for you there, right? I mean, they've been in the retail business, grabbing attention, grabbing, people's mind space or thought space, and then getting them to actually action it by buying or purchasing or at least even trying your product. And to be able to leverage all of that in a super simple platform just makes so much sense. You got Amazon started in 1994, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
94, 93, 94, somewhere then. So yeah, it's almost been 30 years since they've been doing this. So, and they've got tons of data, so they can help you.
Cool. All right, how do we rate this one?
Oh, for the sellers, this is absolutely simplifies. And I would definitely give this a rating of 5.
I would have pushed the 5 button, but I really wish they could have showed a screenshot.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But what would they show? Someone else's sales data?
Some made up data, at least give you an idea of, what.
Got it.
I don't know, I like screenshots.
Okay, we can take it to a 4.5 then.
All right, half a cloud. There we go.
Okay.
But it is pretty cool, and there's no additional cost. That's from a consumer. This is a strict win.
Correct. Okay. Do you want to take the next one, which is using Trino with S3 Select?
Yeah, let's do it.
For EMR.
Okay, here goes. Run queries up to 9x faster using Trino with Amazon S3 Select on Amazon EMR.
Yeah.
Now, this idea that you can have an S3 bucket full of files and treat it like a database. That's so
mind-blowing.
So cool.
Correct. And this is basic, this is a very, very sophisticated use case. I think this was maybe 5 years ago at one of the reInvents. I was meeting with the storage team and they were like, we actually, in the future see S3 becoming the standard storage for everything, for any database, for anything. Like that's because they built such amazing infrastructure under the hood that allows super fast replication across different data centers, that it just makes sense to be able to leverage that as your storage layer across any and all services that are managed by AWS. So now the fact that you can, use EMR and of course Trino to use AWS S3 Select to make those kind of queries and in parallel pick only selected as elements of a large S3 object without having to scan through everything, I think makes so much sense. You could have an S3 file which may be a gig or more, but to be able to selectively go in and only pull out a small fraction of it and not incur all the data transfer costs is incredibly valuable.
No, I remember doing this the hard way, where you instantiate an EC2 instance that's big enough to do what you need to, SSH into it, install whatever tools you're going to use, and then because you need an instance with enough RAM to read whatever file you're using, or use some type of stream processor that will read pieces of the file at a time. But being able to just treat this as a database for all intents and purposes and let Amazon figure out how to open up giant CSVs and JSONs. I mean, they're going to do it better.
Exactly. No, I mean, this is pretty neat. Though, I struggle with EMR being the standard service to kind of use it. I know that a lot of people still use EMR, but if I were to think about processing stuff today, something like Glue makes more sense to me than something like EMR.
So in episode 21, we went over this article. This was it feels like forever ago, with Athena upgrading its SQL query engine, also from the Trino open source project.
Yep.
So it's neat to have this standardized layer.
Yeah. So S3 for storage, Trino becoming the standard query layer over that S3, I think is going to start rolling out across everything. I wonder if it changes anything on the Aurora side. Probably not, because Aurora has already got a bunch of very optimized blocks under the hood. And DynamoDB stores everything in Atmos 10 gig blocks within the S3 storage layer under the hood. So, yeah, I think it'll just be that.
Well,
Can you think of any other service?
No.
I wonder if Glue would offer Trino as a speed up layer to read from S3 for its crawlers. Where you wouldn't have to. So today, the way you actually do stuff with S3 is you partition all of your data in such a way that the Glue crawlers only have to kind of parse through some buckets, But what if you could actually write an S3 Select query that says, here's a big dump of all of my data. It's just in a bucket, free form, without us having to scan it and organize it. And you just query for this stuff within this data. That would be pretty cool if they did that.
And it's neat because with S3, when you get into the real heavy usage, you still have to think about this whole partitioning scheme. Whereas now, to make the abstraction layer totally abstract, I think this is really adding this extra layer of you're not thinking about the underlying data architecture very much, as long as it's in S3 and it's consistent.
Correct. And this is an order of magnitude of less data being processed because you're able to select.
Look at this graph. Terabytes processed, going down from 210 to 10.
Yeah, that's an order of magnitude difference.
And then 2.5x query speed up. This is great. And I like how, I think it's similar to the other. I really like the details, the metrics.
Exactly.
This is great.
Yeah. So this one actually deserves a 5, I think, in terms of how it's presented. And faster, I don't know of anybody who wouldn't like this stuff to be faster. So yeah, simplifies.
Cool. Wow, that's pretty good. Amazon's knocking it out of the park this week.
Yeah, this week has been insane. We've been flooded by the barrage. And in fact, while we've been talking, I think there've been 2 new announcements that came in. So, there's an announcement about QuickSight Asset Management Console, which we haven't had a chance to look at, and one around Chime SDK. So, yeah, lots and lots to digest. But yeah, we'll come back with another episode covering all of those. I actually, before we leave, I do want to spend a few minutes talking about the distributed computing manifesto that Werner Vogel's put out.
All right, let's do that.
And also the Nitro white paper that Jeff put out earlier.
Let me cue up my cue so our segment detector works, and let's get into distributed computing.
Yep.
All right, this is the Werner Vogel's Distributed Computing Manifesto. It's on allthingsdistributed.com, which is his personal site.
Correct.
I put the link in the comments. But this is really neat. This is going back to his recollection of the early days of AWS. On my initial read, it was really neat thinking about how they said, okay, and similar to what we just talked about with Trino, they really wanted to say, let's separate the data layer from the application in a way that they can change how the data works without having to have it tightly coupled to applications. And so even back then, they were thinking about, okay, when they ran their retail store and they wanted to add a new feature, the developers were thinking about columns and indexes when they really should have just been thinking about what's the data that we need and where does it need to go. But at that point, it was all more, and we've all been there as developers, right? You start your first application by concatenating strings together that generate SQL queries.
Correct.
But you want to get away from that pretty quickly.
Exactly. And what I love about this particular article that is put out is the examples that are in there. They're just so relatable because all of us have been there, all of us have done that. And the way they describe things, that the way they were thinking about things almost 20 years ago, I think it's still true for a lot of organizations today. And the mindset change that he talks about that they needed to achieve to rethink how certain kinds of compute would be made more scalable. Their biggest issue really was scalability. And to address that scalability with reliability required them to think about a lot of things very, very differently. And that was kind of the birth of their entire distributed architecture. So if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, please read it. It's got some amazing insights in there. For a lot of organizations, it might still be as relevant today as it was relevant for Amazon 20 years ago. And Yeah, it's the. I think the simplifications that they brought to their world are truly worth applying even today. I think the basic principles still hold, and they can bring huge value to any organization that figures out how to simplify their thinking.
Simplify, decouple, and then
Yeah,
really, we'll kind of back to Steve Yegi's classic blog post. Don't take shortcuts. Have good isolation between presentation, logic, and data, and that way
correct.
you can kind of focus on those differently. Yeah,
Yep,
the link is in the description, and then also he's got his keynote at reInvent, which is now about a week away. All right,
correct.
let's do the Nitro white paper. Here it is. Okay, here is a post that just came out on November 18th. This is a really good one.
Yep.
The security design of the Nitro system. And it really gets into how Nitro are the ARM-based cards that run the hypervisor that can essentially take a physical machine, divide it out into an instance type of a given size, run the networking, all of that stuff that comes by. And it's just amazing to reflect on how far they've come, thinking back from Zen and
Yep.
taking kind of off-the-shelf hypervisors, and now they have this dedicated hardware where you get this whole chain of trust, and it's a phenomenal system.
So I think why for me this becomes a really, really important document for everyone to read is because I think a lot of organizations still have this notion in their head that because this is public cloud and you don't have something like GovCloud or your own cage in which you can put your servers, for whatever reason, all of the infrastructure that AWS offers is shared infrastructure. And because it is shared, things miraculously might get hacked or accessed across those invisible boundaries. And when you read this white paper, it really puts all of those thoughts and those arguments to rest. I mean, we've known it for a while about the kind of security and isolation layers that they've kind of had, but now that the kind of I had not imagined this to be at this level of paranoia, but it's fascinating to read how far they've taken this entire security story with all this custom hardware to be able to do all of this stuff. So I think even I'd say most data centers wouldn't have this level of security, even if you had your own cage. Like you might still have somebody plugging in one cable from one of your racks into something else to enable some kind of a sharing of data. But when I read through the kind of security that's built into the Nitro systems, I mean, it just blows my mind. So,
and not just from other people, but from AWS itself, right? AWS
correct.
can't go and dig into your instances.
Exactly. And this is exactly why, I love this, because anytime I hear that argument now, I can literally just, I used to sit there and debate with people about why all of their, concerns were misplaced. Now I can literally just point them to the document and say, read this before you come and talk to me about, shared being unsecure.
It's a great point of reference to be able to have those discussions and say, okay,
correct.
What is your alternative here? Is it your own? Just because you own the infrastructure, well, have you done all of this? Have you done all this work to secure it? And have you thought through every last angle?
Exactly. So these two articles for me definitely were big 5 stars or 5 clouds, and super simplifies. It definitely makes my arguments a lot simpler. And I have tons of them. You would be surprised how many of these I have.
Yeah, I still talk to people very regularly who think it's just a script around a hypervisor. And even though it was that 25 years ago when it was a stack of laptops, it's gone a long way since then.
Correct. And yeah. So if you haven't read these two articles, this one on the Nitro security system, as well as Werner Vogel's article around the distributed manifesto that they created nearly 20 years ago, read them. They are fascinating reads. I promise you'll learn a lot. So,
and the links are in the comments, and they'll be posted as well. All right. Well, it looks like we're getting close to the end, but I wanted to do one last segment that I think will be a lot of fun. Let me cue up this one. So it's Thanksgiving here in the day after tomorrow, and it's fun to take a little bit of time out and think about things we're grateful for in our lives. And that would be fun to do that just to end this show. Think about things that we're grateful for and acknowledge those things. I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, number one, my family. I couldn't do anything without them. They're phenomenal. And it's funny, even thinking about to this Dev Spaces, at one point, all of my kids could recite the Dev Spaces, my Dev Spaces talk, and helping me go over my lines and practice it. And it was really, really fun. And so I'm so grateful to be a member of that family, of my family. And then zooming out for the team that I'm a part of, my professional team, getting ready for reInvent. It's been an incredible amount of coordination has gone through, and then seeing how efficient and effective and just so purely professional they have all been, and just putting in the extra time. And it's been really incredible to watch, just seeing these, we have our reInvent chat channel and seeing things go through at all hours of the day. That's some serious work that's gone into that. It's been really neat to see that. And I guess one other thing, I'm so grateful that it's raining right now, and that might be coming across as a Seattleite, but it's nice and cold and rainy, and that's how we like it. And it's been a nice welcome time of year. And I guess with Thanksgiving, it brings in this nostalgic feeling of it's winter. We're all closer together physically because we're all indoors more, and it's a really nice time of year. So I'm grateful for that. What about you,
That's
Rahul?
awesome. So I'm going to start with the family as well. I don't think I've been in this particular job and role for 20 years now, and I don't think I could have done it at all without my family's support and literally backing me up with regards to anything that I did. I think they've always had an incredible sense of confidence in what I did, which shocks me sometimes. But just their, the confidence that they instill in me is very, very empowering. So if it weren't for them, I don't think I'd be doing any of this stuff. I wouldn't have gotten into cloud technologies 15 years ago. I just wouldn't be here. So a big thanks to my family to start with. Second, for me is everyone around me, not just the team that's doing stuff at reInvent, but I think I feel very blessed that I have been in a position where I have had an opportunity to learn from folks that I've been surrounded by over the last, 20 plus years. And I haven't had a day that I can think of, and this is something I keep telling people, I can't remember a single day when I haven't learned something new. And so I'm incredibly thankful for every single person that I have connected with, that I work with, that I interact with, that has taught me something or the other. I have only gained. and I feel incredibly blessed to be in that position, that I've learned so much over the last, like literally every single day. So that's something I'm incredibly thankful for. And of course, lastly, I'm really thankful for the confidence that my customers, my team, my colleagues, that the trust that they place on me. Sometimes I get this imposter syndrome where I feel like I'm just a cloud practitioner, but there's I feel like an imposter, try to talk about knowing some of this stuff, where there's just so much still to learn. There is just so much still to do. And the trust and faith that, the team kind of places on me is incredibly empowering, but it wants me to work 10x harder to justify that trust and faith in me.
That's a really neat perspective that you shared. Thank you. I was listening to this philosopher I really like, and he was saying, why do we, how do you view business? And on one hand, we all have to provide, we all have to, make the world go forward, but we can also, it's also an excuse for us as humans to intersect and to do something neat together. And it's just, there's a lot of, serendipity that comes from these relationships, because they're business, but then they become more. They become trust, and they become synergistic, and it's really fun to see how that develops and grows over time.
Couldn't agree more. So those are things there are a million other things that I'm also thankful for, but if I were to pick the top three, that I think it's always going to be these three.
It was really, really neat hearing that, and I think we have it's neat to see the similarities in terms of where these values are. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for listening to our live stream. We will see you next week at reInvent. And if you aren't there, Rahul and I, we're going to be doing a live stream Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, and Thursday wrap-up live stream. Please join any way you can. Ask some questions. And as always, we're here for you. And then after next week, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Absolutely. And please follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever, so you can
Mastodon.
Be updated, or Mastodon now, so that you can stay aware of all the events that we're doing. Things are going to be happening at a crazy, crazy pace once reInvent starts on Monday. So keep on top of things. Follow us, and we'll keep you posted on all the new announcements as they happen.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon. That's a wrap for today. Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving, and hope to see you all soon.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye.
Is your AWS public cloud bill growing? While most solutions focus on visibility, CloudFix saves you 10 to 20% on your AWS bill by finding and implementing AWS recommended fixes that are 100% safe. There's zero downtime and zero degradation in performance. We've helped organizations save millions of dollars across tens of thousands of AWS instances. Interested in seeing how much money you can save? Visit cloudfix.com to schedule a free assessment and see your yearly savings.